What does a country need to do to get into the EU?
Ooh, great question. I am in the European Parliament not only to be represent our constituencies, but we all have jobs in the European Parliament on behalf of Europe as a whole. And one of my jobs in the European Parliament is to help a country called the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia to become a member of the European Union in the future. A few of you, a couple of weeks ago, have seen a new country join the European Union from the former Yugoslavia, whose name was Croatia. Who's that? You? Well done. So we've just got a new country. But I'm right in the middle of how countries join. Basically, they have to show that, first of all, they are democratic countries that respect human rights and the rule of law, like all of the European countries. And that's hard because some of these countries have had wars or totalitarian governments in the very recent past. So transferring over to being a really full democracy, full respect for human rights, free markets for people to trade with is not easy. So they have to do that, it's their political criteria. And then they have to implement all of the existing European Union law, right, which is thousands of pages of law now, on things like the environment, on things like transport, on things like consumer protection, and many other things. And so to be able to adapt their laws to be as good as all the European countries at the moment who've been doing it for all the years is quite a long process, probably takes about 10 years to do. And only when you've done all those things can you join. So it's quite a high bar actually, but there are countries queuing up to join, and it shows that being a member of the club is quite a good thing.
Do you think we should join like the euro, like use it as our currency?
I think that's a more difficult question, to be honest. In principle, is a single market better with a single currency? Yes, because you know, we've all gone abroad. For those of you that have gone abroad, you know how you change your money. You have to line up and change your money, and then you change it back again, or you don't get round to it, and you waste some money. Yeah, and then when you change your money, they charge you a commission. Yeah, and so that takes you quite a lot of time, and it costs you money just to have a different money, and that's inconvenient and a bit costly for us as individuals if we go on holiday, right? But for businesses that trade, it's very time consuming and costly to them, and it means they don't do as much trade as they would, and they don't therefore promote as much business and jobs. And so if you're really to be effective in a single market, a single currency is a good thing. But when Britain looked at joining the single currency, we found that economically it would have been very difficult for us to join at the time. Are there any economics or business studies students here? Yeah. You know that economies go like this. Recently it's been going like this, I'm afraid, yeah. But economies go in cycles, and the cycle for the British economy was at a very different stage to that of most of the European countries. And the sort of policies that would have had to have been implemented if Britain had joined at the time we were really considering it would have been bad for Britain at the time. It wasn't the right time, and so we set some criteria. What's happened since is the Eurozone has found it very difficult with the banking collapse and the economic crisis.
What are your daily routines?
Depends where I am, and anything can always happen. If I'm here, I'm often leaving the house very early, like to come to your school this morning, and then drive 300 miles in a day sometimes around East Anglia. But always when you come, you have the most interesting experiences like this, just meeting you as students and your teachers. You learn such a lot and you meet such interesting people, so that's great. And you always try and learn something yourself and then take it with you, so in what you do. So I'm listening carefully, as well as I hope talking reasonably here. I'm listening carefully to what you say, because I'm supposed to represent you in my job, and so I'm listening to what your concerns are, and that's part of democracy. If I'm in the European Parliament, again it'll probably start very early because I'm often at my desk for the first meetings at 8. You have meetings with people around specific points, maybe from your constituency or maybe on issues you're working with. And then you have the European Parliament meetings, committee meetings or full Parliament meetings where you're with the other MEPs in a big room with interpreters' boxes around, listening through headphones to the different translations. And then, having had the debates, putting forward amendments, you know, have to vote or not, as I said earlier. And you know, I have to make up my mind what is in your interests and the interests of my constituency and the people that I serve. And so those votes are very, very important. And then I have to report back and tell people what it is so people know, and carry on listening to, you know, see if people agree or not, and carry on trying to represent everyone to the very best of my ability. And then on lots of days, travelling between the two also takes up quite a lot of time. And the logistics of being in different countries, I'm often doing 3 countries in a week. And this week I've travelled on the Eurostar between Britain and Brussels 4 times, often very early in the morning or very late at night. So the travelling, but then you're working while you're travelling, that's a good time for reading and also writing things if you're preparing a speech or an article or something. It's very, very varied.
What are your political views in this country?
Well, I've already said I'm Labour, and I'm very proud to be Labour. When I was young, my family wasn't involved in politics at all, but Labour was like a football team, it was our team. And then as I got older and really developed my political views, I could understand why, and I agreed with what my mum thought and so on. And to be honest, I'm never shaken from that. And Labour is internationalist. There is a thing, do you fear people from outside and try and hold them back and you know, blame people from outside? There's a lot of blaming of immigration that's going on at the moment, for example. Or do you say, you know, we're very proud of our country, but we're very proud of being in the world, and it's not one versus the other. And Labour very much thinks that. And Labour very much thinks that you can have a good economy, prosperous business, high numbers of jobs, people being well off and being able to aspire to do good things, but at the same time be fair to people at the bottom and make sure people don't fall too far behind, and if people are discriminated against or treated badly, that they're able to have rights to really challenge that. And Labour really feels that those 2 things go together, and you know, those views do very much motivate me. They reflect where I come from in my background. If I hadn't been given a chance myself, you know, I wouldn't be here. No silver spoons in my background.
What issues are you most passionate about?
Discrimination for the reason I just talked about. Having worked with disabled people for, I think 9 years I was in that job. I really carry that with me. I can't go into a restaurant or a shop without seeing if there's disability access and if the disabled people can get into the toilet. It just goes into your head to do that. And I just think, whether it's race or disability, whether it's sexual orientation, which sometimes people don't talk about but should, whether it's age, whether it's young people as well as old people having an equal chance with everyone else, and obviously whether it's girls as well as boys, women as well as men, I think everyone having an equal chance and discrimination being wrong, that really does drive me a lot. I do feel strongly about the environment myself, because now a lot of people aren't talking about it compared with 5 or 10 years ago, but climate change is happening. It's really happening, you know, and we're really lucky at moving from a 6 billion world to a 1 billion world. And, you know, governments and countries and companies have to wake up for that. And I've been campaigning for a law to say that companies have to report as part of their financial accounts on what they're doing on climate change and other impacts on society. And a lot of people said that was too far and they wouldn't do it and it would be too costly. And I've campaigned for it, and we are very nearly there to getting it. And if we do get it, I'm going to be very, very proud of that. So that really is something that I'm passionately committed to as well. I'll do one more, which is human rights. A lot of people at the moment, if you watch the news, say human rights are an unpopular thing because they're used by people that we don't like. But the whole point of human rights is that people, however much we don't like them, have a right of minimum treatment, to have their life preserved, not to be tortured, to be able to say what they believe even if it's unpopular. And that's what human rights are about. And the Human Rights Convention was formed at the end of the Second World War because, you know, Europe was under the spectre of Nazi Germany, where if you had a different religion, Judaism, or you had different political views, then literally you were killed, you were exterminated. And the world said, we must never do that again. And that's why we have a Convention on Human Rights, and why sticking up for rights as people, even if we don't like them or we don't like what they've done, they've still got a right to be treated as a human being. And that's not always a popular thing to say, but I feel very, very strongly it's important for us to say it. So I would say that's the third thing that really motivates me.
What are your personal views on David Cameron?
The thing is, as a practiced politician, I have been told not to go to school and start swearing. That's a really hardest question I've been asked. I can't tell you the contempt I hold Conservatives in. Right.
Do you think you get like paid enough for your job? Do you think you should get paid more or less?
I think I get paid enough is the answer.
Is there any point in that?
Yeah, ask whatever you like. Go on, go on.
Yeah, what is the impact of new countries joining the EU on the European Parliament, and can you give any examples of some issues that
That's a good one. The interesting thing, showing that we have more in common than different, is that they do provide an impact, but it doesn't fundamentally change the character of the European Parliament, and therefore I'd argue Europe. And that was particularly true when 8 countries from Eastern Europe all joined at once. And people thought, would that change Europe? And it hasn't. So it changes it incrementally. Obviously with Croatia joining now, we've had a country that was at war as recently as 10 years ago. And remember, Britain has not had a land invasion since 1066. So for 1,000 years, Britain has not had a land invasion. If you're on the continent of Europe, you've had a war within the last 100 years where your country has been occupied. And if you're from the former Yugoslavia in the last 10 years, and it does affect the mentality of how important you feel it is to get on with your neighbours and to have peace and to create bonds that secure peace. But we in Britain shouldn't be complacent about that, because if there's war on our borders, we suffer from it too, as we did in the Second World War, and sometimes I think we're a bit complacent about that. It's a bit of an aside. When a new country joins, you get a different language, of course, but they bring their different experience. And with the Slavic countries, I think that is a whole new element of Europe that we're just learning to really integrate and adapt to. But, as I say, we have more in common than all I can say really is we have more in common than we have the differences. And working in the European Parliament, you very quickly don't see the country. You see, my friend Ralph Walter from Germany, or my friend Anna Gomes from Portugal. These are my friends and colleagues, and you're not talking to Portugal or Germany, you're talking to Anna or Ralph. And of course, they bring their insight and experience from their own background and their country's background. But you go way beyond that, and you get into talking about the issue, be it environmental controls, or be it food labelling, or whatever it is we're dealing. And yes, they have different experiences from that we do, and then we work out what we want together. But you very quickly move beyond nationality.
Me and Christy, we represent the Parliament for Central Bedfordshire,
Right.
And I also represent one of the representatives of the East of England UK Youth Parliament.
Right.
So how do you engage with young people to ensure they are being fairly represented on the European level, and what is your general opinion with young people?
First of all, I really respect and support the Youth Parliament, and I don't know if you've seen me before, but I've attended events with the Youth Parliament in different counties around the region. I've invited members of the Youth Parliament to come and meet me in Brussels, which was great. I'm going to give you my card at the end, and if
Sounds good.
to do that, please do, because I think that's part of democracy, is helping this generation to learn those things and share them, so I think that's great. But as well as directly members of the Youth Parliament, I spend time talking to young people. And what am I doing here now, this second? No, nothing's perfect, Labour Party isn't perfect, by the way, any more than the Conservatives, so I'm not going to claim that. Britain isn't perfect, Europe definitely isn't perfect. Thank you for listening this morning.